Is that the biggest weakness we have? Is that we click on that text or we click on that email? Where are the weak points that we should think about shoring up when it comes to our online communication?
I've come to the conclusion it's the tools that we're asked to use are incredibly vulnerable. Like, so business email was never designed for secure communication. It's not secure communication. As you receive emails, you kind of inherently have to be suspect of them because anyone can get your email address, including the bad guys. The same for texts. So if I'm receiving a text, that is not a secure communication mechanism. So as you're using these mechanisms, all the imposter has to do is have your phone number, have your email address, and they can begin sending you emails that are increasingly using artificial intelligence to create content that looks more and more readable. So you kind of have to be deliberate and slow when you're using those kinds of tools. And the other one I would put in there are the social media messengers. Any of the social media messengers, particularly like the WhatsApp of the world, the Instagram direct messaging, all these kinds of direct messengers, incredibly vulnerable to imposter attacks. So it's a little unfortunate, but that's the condition we live with. If the tools that we've been given to use in our day-to-day digital lives are inherently insecure.
So the second I'm communicating with somebody, you're saying maybe, what's that line, Kurt? Trust but verify?
Yes. So I'm a big fan of trust but verify, Joe.
Let's talk about some of the things that have come up lately. Microsoft and the people at OpenAI coming clean and saying that their tools are being used to make hackers smarter and to make hackers better. What do you make of this AI in the world of hacking?
It's already accelerating, and we'll see more of it. And these guys are organized. It's not like these are just people in a basement. I mean, they have their own infrastructure. They have their own processes. And on, what probably the big one out there has been the voice fake. They've been able to synthesize voices, and if they can get a clip of your voice, they'll use artificial intelligence engine to generate your voice saying whatever it is they want. They will use that for fake kidnapping. And that's relatively common at this point. I'm not going to call it rampant yet, but it's relatively common. And they'll a lot of times go after an elderly parent, I should say grandparent, and they'll synthesize the voice of a grandchild and call in and say, this person's going to lose their life. The grandchild's going to lose their life unless you wire money. And they know that the grandparent is a little more vulnerable, if you will, to these kinds of attacks. And so that would be a simple attack. Other kinds of attacks on businesses, I would absolutely consider them possibly directed at the public, is money wiring. So they'll take the voice of, say, someone who has access to the bank's accounts, and they will synthesize the voice of someone that's known to them and part of a business or part of a family, and ask that they wire money, usually in an emergency circumstance. And those are just happening. That's all AI driven. I'm sure we'll see, if we're not already, video that's going to look like you're talking to me or Joe. And I haven't heard those yet. Maybe your audience has. I haven't heard those yet, but the voice fakes are everywhere.
And to tell you, Stackers, how prevalent this is, on the software, Kurt, that we use to edit our shows, if I make a mistake asking you a question, I ask it a wrong way, I want to ask it better, we have AI inside of our editing equipment where I can just type in the question I meant to ask. It will change the long, meandering bad question I asked into me asking a question that I never asked when you and I were. I mean, that's how prevalent this is. We're using it in a quote good way, but if it's easy for us to use, you got to believe the bad guys have got it.
100%. And I don't want to be the doomsday guy, but I don't think we've seen anything yet. This is just getting started, and just to kind of put things together so people understand when they hear about a breach, and you're like, well, did that breach really impact me? And it doesn't feel like it did, even though you get a breach notification. And the way that works, and you could pick any breach you want. I'm not even going to name one. There's been so many big ones. What happens is when the bad cyber criminals get the breach, they get your data, they're going to get a phone number, they're usually going to get an email address. They might even get your home address. Whatever they get, it's going to be sent to the dark web, where big databases are maintained of all of our information. And then people actually bid on that when there's a fresh breach to say, I will bid a certain amount for this kind of information. And then it's, to be forthright, it's software's, crime as a service. You can purchase different kinds of criminal services, and then you plug the data in. And so when you get all those crazy text messages that say, hey, FedEx has a package for you, all you need to do is pay and click the credit card thing. And you're like, how'd they get my number? Well, it's because there was a breach back that you might have read about. It all goes to the dark web, and then it's in perpetuity there. And then you wind up with different criminal enterprises purchasing that data and running crimes, especially as new technologies come out, like the ones we're talking about today with the AI generated. And they love getting fresh data.
Well, and it's almost like, Kurt, when somebody tells me that X person's a good salesman, I think, no, they're not, because I felt the sale.
Yes.
I think the best salespeople are sublime. And if the same thing here, if the crime's happening and I don't feel a thing and it just kind of silently happens, like, that's the true criminal.
I think that's right. And, so there's on, a related topic, you start, and again, we're just going to keep coming back to this idea that cyber criminals, they're criminals. They look for vulnerability. And believe it or not, there's two broad categories of vulnerability. Your children, and you say, why my children? Because no one monitors their credit. They're not out there. Their credit card's not going to get denied. So if they can get your children's information, they'll take out loans on it. They'll set up credit card fraud. They will just do everything they possibly can to maximize the financial gain from your child's identity. And then as your child becomes an adult and goes to get a credit card, they find out they have bad credit. And the second one is aging elderly parents. They're just so vulnerable. So a lot there is off imposter attacks coming into their text messaging, coming in through social media apps, and you can go to the FBI cybercrime statistics, and you'll see easily that the elderly by money volume account for the largest losses. And sadly, if you have an elderly parent, I call them aging because it could be all different range. My opinion is, if I'm the person in the household that's the responsible party, if you will, can I get my head around trying to protect my loved ones from the pain that these people intend for them? One last one, they go after the sick too, Joe. So like if they're sick and they know they're not going to be spending money, and you might think, oh, this is the homeless, nobody monitors the homeless. So they're just going to go after the most vulnerable, and you have to psychologically accept that. Control what you can control, protect your information, and communicate securely. I would say you got to get organized, get everything in one place, like Carnegie said. Get all your eggs in one basket and protect that basket.